preparing for this sermon, my mind conjured up an old film I saw in 1980, The Blue Lagoon. The film was released on June 20th, 1980 by Columbia Pictures and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and starred Christopher Atkins, who won a Golden Globe for Best New Performer, and the beautiful Brooke Shields, who received a Raspberry Award for her pitiful performance. I didn't notice that her acting was bad because the story was so interesting to me. These two young folks were shipwrecked as children in the South Pacific Paradise Island, somewhere out where away from everybody, along with an old cook who died in their childhood, leaving them to make it on their own. Among the many other things they did to survive, they invented their own religion. They knew the word God, and the girl thought she found God when she found an old altar on the other side of the island where the cook had forbidden them to go. And the boy actually carried her to this God when she was sick. And they had regular rituals that they made up. They made up their own religion. Of course, this was all fiction created by the Irish author of the original novel published in 1908. Fiction that, like much of fiction, to me, seems to ring true. This young couple had a need to draw upon something supernatural with rituals and more. And there have been other deserted isle books that have also shown the need for religion, some with very negative consequences. These authors tended to view the need for religion as something we've evolved for survival. And guess what? Much of the
we have draws us to several conclusions from most folks. Not all of us. Of course, we're still involved. So it's all always been for us. But with a number of folks a lot smaller than me, I'm going to try to find the question of why folks think religion or not. In doing this, I'm going to use several sources, which involves other sources. Thankfully, this is not an academic paper like I used to have to do when I started every day. So I'm not going to cite all of these sources. I just give you the paper of short topics. Now, the simple reason that many will give to this question of why religion is because God, known by many names, and believe that because they communicate in God and receive evidence of God's involvement in the world. But there are at least 6 of the world that will never continue
who don't buy into anything supernatural or religious. And a recent Pew poll shows that more than 30% of Americans don't identify with any religion. So that why question still looms large for many of us. This is not a new question, why people are religious. Karl Marx, for example, called religion the opium of the masses. Sigmund Freud felt that God was an illusion and worshipers were reverting to their childhood needs of security and forgiveness. A more recent psychological explanation is the idea that our evolution has created a God-shaped hole, or has given us a metaphorical God engine, which can drive us to believing in a deity. Essentially, this hypothesis is that religion is a byproduct of cognitive and social adaptations, which have been extremely important in human development. And there are scientists who believe our brains are hardwired. Our brains, here's the brain right there. I'm not showing any pictures up here, but there's my fist, okay? Our brains are hardwired for religion. Rather than try to put this in my own words, I'm going to quote directly from Renee J. Mueller's article in Psychiatric Times titled Neurotheology, Are We Hardwired for God? Because he's explained this well in terms that those of us who are not neurologists or theologians can understand. Considering that the brain is increasingly being credited with having a role in everything we think, feel, and do, it was probably just a matter of time before it's postulated that religious belief has a neural substrate. The question of how the brain might be hardwired for spirituality has captured the interest of many investigators who've established careers in fields as different as neurology, theology, and neuroscience, and spawned a new discipline of neurotheology. There are neurotheologians now, folks. Neurotheologians argue that the structure and function of the human brain predispose us to believe in God or something godlike. They claim that the site of God's biological substrate is in the limbic system, deep within the brain, not up front where we're thinking right now, but in that God hole, I guess. So deep within the brain, which has long been considered to be the biological center for emotion. Ron Joseph, a prominent theologian, goes a step further to suggest that the limbic system is dotted with God neurons and God neurotransmitters. Among the limbic structures that have been associated with religious belief, the most frequently credited are the hypothalamus, amygdala, and the hippocampus. Neurotheologians point to changes in functional MRI scans. So they put these people through the MRI, like many of you have been, looking at their brains. And they point to those scans as research subjects engage in either prayer or religious meditation, some kind of religious ritual. The reason that if thinking about God changes the way brain works, they see changes in the MRI, but they folks do these things. There must be some inherent neural imperative to believe in God in the first place. In making this connection, neurotheologians are following the lead of neuroscientists who claim that changes seen in functional brain scans in persons who are happy, depressed, or obsessed demonstrate that these phenomena are brain-driven. Elia Delio, who is a member of the Roman Catholic Franciscan Order and holds doctoral degrees in pharmacology and historical theology, gives this account of how neurotheologians conflate theology and neuroscience to make the case for a religious neural substrate. He says, it is tempting to speculate that there is a God module in the brain and that such a module is located in the area of the limbic system. However, such speculation needs to be made cautiously. What these findings do point to, however, what they do point to is that spirituality involves the brain. For the first time in human history, we're beginning to understand that spiritual experience is not something apart from the physical human, but rather bound up with human matter. That is the matter of the brain. For many of us know that the neural system goes on down through our body and all the way out through the neural system. Thus, matter and spirit no longer seem to be opposed, but are indeed mutually related, if not one and the same. Challenging the idea that religious belief is rooted in any particular brain structure or function, David L. Smith, a Roman Catholic priest and clinical psychologist, asked, if God neurons or God transmitters actually exist in the brain, are they defective in the agnostic and absent in the atheist? Implicitly, Smith is holding the neurotheologians to the same standard that neuroscientists would feel obligated to meet from proposing a connection between neurons and neurotransmitters and some other behavioral phenomena. These neurons and neurotransmitters must be shown to exist, but no scientist or theologian has come forward to stake a clear-cut claim to God neurons or God neurotransmitters. Smith concludes that neurotheology is a pseudoscience. I also read a medical research article, which I won't quote because it used terminology that is more specifically designed for those with medical backgrounds. But basically, this article shared how some scientists were able to show different brain activity between those who identify with different religions. My own conclusions, as one who claims no expertise, but has great appreciation for both neurology and theology, is that more study is needed. But whether you can locate it in the brain or not, most of us agree that we seem to have evolved this need. And of course, evolution, both physical and social, is ongoing. Most of us understand that we develop attachments as young children. And these attachments can move beyond humans to inanimate objects. This ability, known as cognitive decoupling, originates in childhood through pretend play. And it's a small leap from being able to imagine the mind of a teddy bear to imagining an omnipotent, omniscient, human-like mind and a deity, especially if we have religious texts which tell us of their past actions. It's not a major leap to become attached to something we cannot see that can provide us with a feeling of security, a God or Jesus or whatever as an adult security blanket. In addition to what some may call psychological benefits of security provided by religion, the ritual behavior seen in collective worship makes us enjoy and want to repeat the experience. Dancing, singing, and achieving trance-like states were prominent in many ancestral societies and are still exhibited by some today. As well as being acts of social unity, formal rituals also affect brain chemistry. They increase levels of serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin in the brain. When you do rituals, especially with others and groups, chemicals that make us feel good, want to do things again, and provide a closeness to others. That love stuff. Before I became a minister, I used to go to Women's Spirit every year. How many of y'all been to Women's Spirit? Okay, just a couple of them. I used to go every year, sometimes both the fall and spring events at the mountain. One of the practices they had every evening was to go up into what we call the tree house, which is just a big room on the second floor of one of their buildings, but it feels like it's in the trees. They got windows all around and you see all the trees. And we do drumming and dancing. And whether drumming or dancing, folks, I got high. Not because we were drinking or taking drugs, we were not. But doing these rituals together as a group sure did increase those levels of all those feel-good chemicals in our brains. And I connected with those women, you know. I've had that happen sometimes here in this room. When we were singing or connecting in some other ritual together, singing Spirit of Life or doing some ritual perhaps like Sherry did last week. Like Skinner's rats, I keep coming back for more. So there is an immediate reinforcement for worship and long-term benefits as well. You all know that studies have shown that people who regularly participate in communal worship, like you are doing today, are healthier and live longer. Amen. I'll go for that. Now, as I noted at the beginning of this message, a growing number of folks are not religious. And there is some interesting research related to this as well. Perhaps the best source of this is the Pew Research Center, which periodically surveys around the world and asks, what is your present religion, if any? Respondents are given a countrywide specific list of potential responses, which generally include several major world religions, as well as atheist, agnostic, and nothing in particular. What recent surveys have found is an obvious age gap. An age gap. Young adults are more likely to be religiously unaffiliated. This is especially true in North America, where in both the US and Canada, younger people are far less likely to claim a religious identity. These findings are in line with the rise of religious nuns in the US, which is being driven largely by high levels of disaffiliation among younger generations. The gap is also prevalent in Europe in 22 out of 35 countries, and in Latin America, where it applies in 14 out of 19 countries, including Mexico. Joining these Western countries are South Korea, Australia, and Japan. which have some of the biggest gaps, with younger adults rejecting religious identity. However, the pattern is not as pronounced in other parts of the world. In the Middle East, North Africa region, and Sub-Saharan Africa, where most people identify as either Muslim or Christian, there are no countries where young people are less affiliated. In fact, the only two countries that have a combined 30 in these regions with an affiliation gap for age are Chad and Ghana, where young folks are more likely than their elders to claim a religious affiliation, making these nations the only exceptions, those two, the only exceptions to the prevailing pattern around the world. There is some speculation that the amount of violence and conflict in these countries may contribute to the increased levels of religiosity among the young adults, who may be more likely affected by this violence. So again, perhaps when the security blanket is needed, people seek it out regardless of age or geography. The countries with the increasing number of folks who do not identify with religion are countries where folks may at least not feel that their survival is in doubt. The question about religion is especially intriguing to me because of my own religious history, beginning as a Southern Baptist who was born again at 9 years old and ending up here as a Unitarian Universalist minister, and one who finds no meaning personally in the supernatural, but seeks meaning in the natural world. Some of my friends and family have had difficulties accepting my path, and that's understandable. Some of you may face similar situations. Here's how I responded to one family member who could not believe that I did not believe as she believed. I shared with her that the Bible, that both of us knew well, shared that we were all given different gifts. And it seems that she was blessed with the gift of the faith in the unseen, in which that had been taught to her from an early life. And it seemed to me that this gift had helped her to have a wonderful life, and I respected and admired that. Instead, I was given the gift of a questioning mind, and that gift had led me to a life of pondering and inquiry that opened many doors for me. So that too was a good gift. And I hope she could be as happy that I received a gift that was good for me, just as I was glad that her gift was good for her. Some have asked why I identify as a religious naturalist and not as an atheist. Well, in reality, perhaps they are kin, but the word atheist shares what you are not. And it's true that I'm not a theist, but it doesn't share what I am. I could claim the identity of humanist, but it seems a little too human for me. In any case, I am a religious person. Religion means connecting again. The re is the connection, and religion comes from the same root as ligament, connecting. It means connecting again. And I do need to connect to that which I find meaningful, good. I can even use the word sacred and divine. So I am thrilled that among the world's religions is one that allows me to do just that. And that is Unitarian Universalism. I can't answer the question of why people need religion, but I can share why I need something like Unitarian Universalism and people like you. I need to be accepted as I am. I may have different beliefs than you do, but you accept me. I need to be able to work with others to make the world a better place. I need worship, songs, rituals, messages that stir me and inspire me to be my best self. I need others. I do not need a creator, an omniscient, omnipresent being. But folks, I do need you. And I need this faith tradition or something like it. Maybe there are folks who don't need it, and that's just fine. But we need to be here for folks like you and me. Unitarian James Luther Adams called congregations like ours free churches. His words are shared in our hymnal as a responsive reading. And I have them up here, and I'm going to close this message by sharing this responsive reading with you as it's projected on the wall. I will read the plain Jane words, and you read those in italics. I call that church free, which enters into covenant with the ultimate source of existence. It binds together families and generations, protecting against the idolatry of any human claim to absolute truth or authority. It is covenant, charter, responsibility, joy, the face of death, as well as love. I call that church free, which brings individuals into a caring and trusted fellowship that protects and nourishes their integrity and spiritual freedom that yearns to belong to the church universal. It is open to insight and conscious from every source. It bursts through rigid tradition, giving rise to a new and living language, to new and broader fellowship. It is a pilgrim church, a servant church, on the convention of the Spirit. The goal is the prophethood and priesthood of all believers, the one for the liberty of prophesying, the other for the ministry of healing. It aims to find unity and diversity under the promise of the Spirit that Lord where wisdom and making all things new. May it be so, folks. Amen. And blessed be.